Okay, so this video is gonna be a bit more of a personal recount and based on my own memories rather than like an informative one. And this will kind of tell you how I choose to not follow the trends based on what the Singapore bus community on YouTube has been doing and just casual stuff like that. It's not a serious video, but I just figured it would be a fun one to do. So the words that you see on screen, hyperlapse or route visual, it just basically means you're filming the scenery from the front window of a bus. Be it on a single decker, you're getting onto like the frontmost seat or the double decker. Or even bendy buses, the wheelchair accessible ones because they have the seat. So let me take you guys back to when this trend was started, or like who even popularized this trend in the first place. So these people, they weren't exactly the first ones who like started this whole concept, because in the past people filmed like, I think it was like premium bus services, and then it was exactly the same concept. You get on board a double-decker bus, you go to the front and then you just film the scenery. And back then, it wasn't as popular because like the camera quality of like phones, they weren't that good. But and then YouTube at that time had an issue with uploading videos that were like too long. So that's kind of like how the, the whole concept of hyperlapse even came into the picture and even became what it is today. So for these people, like this group of people, him, him, and him. So I actually know these people IRL, and this one is Adil. Is one of my best friends. So so basically, these people, they're like part of a bigger group. Okay, it's not really a big group, but it's more of a like, uh, why am I saying big? It's more of like a small group and collaboration between different YouTubers, and basically they kind of like split the workload of filming all the front views of the Singapore buses like amongst themselves. And then when one of them becomes inactive, they would then another member would then take over the filming. So that's basically how it works. So the main difference between them and the people who like do hyperlapses in the past of like the premium bus services is that in the past, the enthusiasts who did them, they just uploaded like the raw footage and then they sped it up and then they added music or something along those lines. And what these people are doing is like more or less the same thing. There's no change, but the main difference is that uh, these people would come up with their infographics as well. So what I mean by like infographics is that, so let's say the bus is in motion. Let's say the bus is currently on Tampines Avenue 5 or something. And then they would also have an additional text box over here saying stuff like, you know, 2 stops served or something along those lines. When they mean 2 stops served, in this particular case, they're referring to like one at our Tampines hub and then the one that's like to the south of it, in between avenues 4 and 1. So in a road, in a particular road, how many bus stops do the buses actually stop at. And then aside from that, then you go to the actual bus stop. Okay, I'm just gonna come up with a random bus stop code. It's not the real one, but I'm just gonna write a random one. And then they would actually list out like every single service that passes by these areas, kind of like in this fashion. Now obviously there are more, but conceptually this is how like the infographics are supposed to work. So again, this group of people, they made hyperlapses for like really practical reasons, because especially if their videos are in like 4K, which is like I don't exactly remember how big this is, or if their videos are in like these formats. You kind of get what I mean. I'm bad at math, but yeah. If your videos are in these formats, it means that like it just takes like a long time to process them, especially when it comes to longer videos. And because of that, when you're doing like the infographics, especially when it comes to really long services like let's say 10, 30, 51, 61, 858, when you're doing these long services, or even 154, you have to comb through like lots and lots of footage, and it's kind of time consuming. It's like your video processor, it has to load in the video, it has to like process the video in the first place. So whilst you're doing that, they thought like, oh, we might as well just speed up the video. It's more efficient that way, and we can churn out videos at a faster rate, and we don't really have to wait till midnight before our videos are ready. So the reason why they do hyperlapses is, again, for a very practical reason. It's to shorten the time spent in uploading onto YouTube, and even like processing the video editing. It's just a really practical reason. And you repeat the process, and you actually get a really, really nice YouTube series, which is like you split them amongst your friends, the different people that are in your group, and then you give yourselves a name, and then you guys sort of become famous, that kind of thing. It's actually a really genius way of doing things. And because they were the ones who they weren't necessarily the ones who started this trend again, but they were the ones who actually popularized it. And then many other Singapore bus enthusiasts, they decided to make their own hyperlapses as well. But up till now, when I actually look through YouTube, and honestly, these are like my sort of like observations. I don't know what to title this, but let's just say popularize. But then when you popularize something, and then it kind of like grows too big, like not in a bad way, but it's like when this sort of like becomes the norm, this is kind of what happens. So like you see people just like actively copying your trend. Okay, for me, I don't have anything against copying. Even I myself, uh, I'm like kind of chill with it. You see most other YouTubers, they are like, do not duplicate my footage, do not without permission, do not what's that again? Do not use my videos without permission, or do not use my videos at all. Duplication is strictly forbidden. or like please credit me if you want to use my videos, or stuff like that. But then for me, I think I'll just say it out now. For me, I don't mind if people use my videos at all, with or without credit. You can just take my videos. That's the whole reason why I even upload it into onto YouTube in the first place. Now, obviously, don't please don't go around like treating other YouTubers the same way. But for me, I just kind of have a mindset that if I didn't want people like taking the footage, I wouldn't even have uploaded it onto the internet or like social networking sites in the first place. So I myself accept the risk that like if you put something online, people can just like screenshot or copy paste it. And this goes for videos as well. So that's kind of why like I just don't really care. Like personally, I just don't really care. And because I just want to make like my content as accessible to people as possible, I just want to like share my videos, like literally share them with people. That's why for me, I'm gonna say this again. You do not have to use my videos with my permission. You don't even have to credit me. You can just take them now. Obviously, this works differently with other YouTubers, but for me, I allow it. And yeah, but back to the whole, copying thing, I would say. So when you look through YouTube, you would most often see thumbnails in these colors for their respective PTOs, public transport operators. So what you guys would see is probably something along the lines of this, maybe this, and maybe this, and let's say this. So everywhere you go, like on YouTube, you search for a particular bus service, these things would pop up, and it's not just numbers. They would say like direction 1, direction 2, loop service, trunk service, I don't know, night rider service, express service, special service, or something along those lines. But then again, I sort of like noticed this trend, and literally everyone was following it. And when you do that, sometimes I think the bus enthusiasts have become more or less like duplicates or like clones of, you know, like this group. Yeah, you can see the thumbnails. It's actually quite simple, and the reason why they do this is because you don't uh it's because like you want to shift people's attention away from the title, and you want people to see like the main purpose of your content like at one glance. That's why they make the numbers big and stuff like that. But this is very simple, and it's really good at like catching attention. So basically, people started like trying to follow or mimic these people, not necessarily in a bad way, but I guess you can say you kind of see it too often right now. You have like smaller names that, you know, they don't really have their original content. They just like, oh, I'll make my own hyperlapses. But when they say make their own hyperlapses, it's more or less like the same concept. Like the thumbnails are in this format, it's the same, and then the infographics are also more or less, I would say, copy and pasted. Because I have yet to like find a YouTuber that actually does things in a different manner. It's like when they reach a stop, or when the bus turns into a new road, that they would say road name, bus stop name, how many stops served, how many stops called, and then they list down all the bus services that serve that particular stop. So again, essentially what I'm getting from these like smaller YouTubers is that again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with copying, but um, but it's like I just find that your videos, your content in general, you can say stuff like, "Oh, I'm making my own hyperlapses," but your content is more or less the same as them, and it's not like you're putting a like how do you say your own touch or like your own creative spin on said content. You can kind of say like it got over popularized and it became the norm, like to the point whereby I was starting to miss like how people filmed like back in the day. And then okay, so first up, I think this one is a really good channel because all the videos are like raw footage. And even like for buses like this where you don't have the front seat, he films from the front as well. Okay, there's no playback on these, but yeah, there's no like yeah. And okay, maybe let me just oh yeah, it's oh unfortunately because these videos are like quite old, they don't really have that preview kind of thing. But then to be honest, even for like my generation of bus enthusiasts, even their content was like more or less copied. It was them just filming joyride videos of different buses, different transmission sounds, ZF, VoIF, different bodyworks or variants of buses. It was just copied. So it's not like the hyperlapses are the only ones that like, push out this kind of like unoriginal content. Even in the past they did. But in the past, I think there were also people who filmed from the front as well. Like actually quite a number of them. Especially when they get like double deckers or stuff. Or if they get a mid-engine bus like Volvo B10M Mark II, Mark III, Mark IV, the mid-engine buses, they would film from the front. So it isn't necessarily like what you would call a hyperlapse, but they more or less like filmed from the front. But the main point is that their videos were raw, unedited, and it's just like as if you are watching. It's like just as okay, like when you watch these videos, it's just like as if you are on board the bus itself. And I think when I make my content, I also want to like sort of like get my viewers to immerse themselves in the bus ride or sort of thing. Because for hyperlapse, you have to remember that it's like edited and sped up. So it's more of like a quick way for you to like learn the route, the road names, or even like the bus stop names. That's like the whole purpose of hyperlapse. It's more of like you can just see things quickly, but for me, I just want to keep things like authentic and genuine in that sense. And that's kind of the reason why I don't speed up my videos just like people in the past. Because right now, if you have good Wi-Fi and the luxury of time, you can actually afford to upload these like raw videos of the front views onto YouTube. Just like in the style of Japan and Hong Kong as well. Because in Hong Kong, they also speed up their videos occasionally, but the trend is that they would actually more or less sit through the entire ride and then they would upload said footage onto YouTube completely unedited. And you will realize the difference is that for the people who do hyperlapses, they would do their thumbnails in like this format. But then for me, and even for the channel which I showed you just now, we actually put like the actual buses in the thumbnail as well. And you will realize no one really does hyperlapses on bendy buses except like 858 or something, or 912M, I don't know. I think I'm the only one besides the Nicholas who actually does this, to be honest. So again, the main point about this is that like everybody is just more or less like a clone of each other, even though they claim to like put their own spin or format on their own videos. I would say it's just more of like their own flavor. So when I saw this, I was literally like, you guys are more or less the same as each other. You have to imagine like I go onto YouTube, all I see is, you know, these. Like the service number really big and then a color corresponding to the operator. That's all I see really. So it sort of came to this point, and then I decided to just, you know, make my own. But what do I really mean by make my own? I'll just show you in a bit. It's gonna take a while to load, but yeah. Oh god, it's really slow for some reason. Okay, it's finally loaded in. So yeah, basically what I aim to do is like, oh my god. So what I aim to do is like, I aim to like give people an authentic ride on board the bus. So most of the time I would show like the actual bus that's like that I rode. Like for example, I would put the Citaro here, the man bus here, or things like that. So this is basically how I do things. It's completely unedited. I just cut out like, you know, some of the stops at traffic lights or bus stops. Sometimes I leave it in. And then one of my viewers also pointed out the one thing about this format is that you can actually gauge like the demand of a particular bus route. You can more or less hear the number of like tap-ins and tap-outs. So when you don't edit your videos, you're kind of like, how to say, you're kind of like giving them the full experience of a bus ride, and that's what I kind of want to do. And even you guys also know that like when I do my videos, I just put a simple text box. I don't really put all the infographics or anything. I just put text box, I put text. I'm like kind of messy, but I just yap, you know. Okay, because for me it's like when I say I have OCD, what I mean is that like intrusive thoughts. I'm not the kind of person who's like, you know, OCPD in the way that like it's kind of different by the way. I'm not the kind of person who like yearns for like perfection in any way. And for me it's more of like I'm just like compelled to document stuff when they're still around. And when I don't document stuff, I would kind of like get upset with me, and that's basically, and that sort of like triggers my intrusive thoughts saying that like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. So that's what I mean when I have OCD. It's not necessarily anything to do with like perfection. That's like more of like obsessive compulsive personality disorder, and not really like the intrusive thoughts kind of OCD. I know they overlap sometimes, but for me it's more of like I just get a bit like bummed out when I didn't like film something like for example the 518 double decker bus diversion up Republic Boulevard. because I really needed the footage to recreate like the city shopper bus routes. So I was kind of bummed about that, but I just improvised. I just made a transition slide saying that, oh, it copies service 36 or something along those the lines. But even for like my recreations, I would just start the bus at a random bus stop. I don't necessarily like, oh, this is the start and this is the end of the bus. I have to like do everything perfect. No, I only start at the start and end at the end for my when I film like the present day bus routes, and that's all. So as I've said, I'm not someone who like yearns for perfection. It's not that I don't have any like quality control either, but it's more of like I'm not so like obsessed. I don't like really go all out to chase perfection. It's like when most other people they do it, if there's like a mistake in their video, even a small one, they would actually go out of their way to like record it again, or like if it rains and they're filming on a double decker or single decker, but more of like double decker, they would just stop their footage and they will kind of get disappointed when it sort of rains. And that's kind of another reason why, because of the northeast monsoon, most people don't really do a lot of like actual filming in like November and December, even though it's like the school holidays for like most people. It's like kind of a luck based thing. But for me, even if there's rain, I literally don't care. I just continue on. So, yeah. And because like a big part of me is like I just wish that when I was a lot younger I was able to like document stuff, but now that I'm unable to, I still want to find a way to like document things without actually like documenting them. I don't know if that even makes any sense, but basically it's so I do all this. And as you can see, it's not too different, like even my thumbnails, it's not too different from like what is currently on YouTube. It's just that for these videos I actually have to specify like most of the time I have to specify like which era the routes came from, like which are like the more or less exact years that it came from, unless it's something very obvious, like in the case of 189, then I don't put it. But in this case I still put it over here. And one thing that I accept is that like when you make these sorts of videos, you're obviously gonna run into a lot of people complaining about like, hey, 307 is from Choa Chu Kang to UT and Teck Whye Loop. And 390 and 394 don't even exist. What are you on about? But I remember 402 because I lived through that era. And like, this is basically how it would go. And yes, I was also a little worried about like Service 700. Because if I put Shenton Way to Woodlands, I would get a lot of comments saying that 700 was from Bukit Panjang. Yes, it is. But before you guys were even born, this thing went to Marsiling and Woodlands. So yeah, and then even 700, it was probably kind of introduced when this bus service 952 got cut. So yeah, and for NR7, it's like I don't even care that I do it in the daytime. I don't even care that I mix daytime and nighttime footage. Like I splice them. Sometimes it's like, out of laziness. Sometimes it's because I don't really want to invest my time just for that one sector, just to re-record that one sector of bus route. If I have footage, I'll just use it and I'll just put there times that day, times that night. And even if this NR7 route, now obviously I did not start from like the actual starting point, I just started midway because I feel that like some form of documentation is like better than no documentation at all. And a lot of people they don't even want to attempt NR7 because right now, because Cross Island Line Pasir Ris Drive 1 is not like one section of Pasir Ris Drive 1 is inaccessible, and because like I just feel like just because of that, people don't even want to attempt like recreating it. Because road changes I feel are like kind of inevitable, and even if you don't recreate the route 100%, I just want people to like, when they watch these videos, they have a rough idea about what the routes were like in the past, and if they really wanted to know what their exact routes were, they can just go and research online. There are many there's like a lot of material online being uploaded by people, and if you really wanted to know, you should do your own research kind of thing. And this is kind of why I made a mistake on 86. It was supposed to go like Lavender Street and Serangoon Road, but then I mistakenly wrote 107 all the way through, and then I was like, never mind, I'm just gonna pin a comment, and then I'm just gonna put the real route of 86, like in the description or something. So yeah, again, for me, I'm not really so particular if like there are just minute differences in the route. I just do them anyway, cause why not? It's still better than like not filming at all. And I kind of find it hard to imagine that like I'm still the only one that even attempted NR7 in the first place. There were Joyride videos, of course, but like, you know, when it comes to like front view, honestly, I'm still kind of in disbelief that like, even if you don't talk about NR7, which is like really complicated, nobody really even attempts like making stuff like 189 or even short distance. I didn't even film the whole route of 106. I'm just like, uh, I'm just like, okay, I just want the most important sector of this 106 because people already more or less know the route anyway. Not the one that goes from Serangoon Garden Circus, but the one that starts at the old Serangoon interchange and then goes to Dhoby Ghaut Somerset Orchard. So yeah. And then again, sometimes when I get this kind of thing, 185 SBS, I have to put there first generation, otherwise people would complain. So I do this because I really miss these bus routes. Like as a kid, how old was I? I think I was like 2007, 2009. I was like 8 to 10 years old. I saw 578, I saw 579, I saw 581 at Orchard Road. I haven't really seen like the rest, like 551, 575, 577 and stuff. But yeah, it was because I missed the old routes, and 865 also, which then became 85, then became 119, like present day 119. I miss these routes, like genuinely, and I just wanted to find a way to bring them back to life, you can say. And then I also want to share it with people. I want to tell people that, hey, when I was younger, I rode on these bus routes, and I used the present day versions to recreate them because I did not have a chance to film them when I was younger. And it's also like, because if you're like born in the 2010s era, some roads in the past you might not be familiar with them. I just want to like use like the landscape and the roads now to recreate it so that even if you're living in like let's say 2024 now, if the bus still existed, like let's say hypothetically, this is the route it would take. And because this is like present day footage, I'm sure many people who watch these videos, they would be able to like better connect to it. Obviously, like the landscape has changed in like the past 20 years or so, or 15 years or so, but you're still able to like experience it because I splice stuff together. And the reason why I keep my videos in like normal speed, I don't speed it up, is because it's easier for me to like splice them. This one actually takes quite some time to like master. I mean, obviously you can like gather loads of footage and then you can pick out the best one, but I don't do that. I just do it all in one take, and I'm not even trying to hide the fact that like there's a jump cut in my videos when I do these or anything. Now, obviously some jump cuts are just a bit more clean than others, but like I said, I don't really care. I just want to show people the route. And jump cut means like a bus is going straight, and with video editing magic, like it's not like I'm actually editing the video, it's more of like I'm just piecing together different videos strategically so that I can give off the impression that the bus, which is actually going straight, is turning left or turning right. And then if there are no buses that actually turn left or right, I would just put a text box saying turn left here, turn right over here. Something along those lines. And again, I put my videos at times one speed completely unedited, unless the footage is like, I don't know how to say, unless people have already watched that video and you know it's kind of like redundant to like watch it again. Okay, like for example, if I had finished 106, I probably would have sped up the part from like Dhoby Ghaut to Bukit Batok, because it's like people already know like what 106 route is. I don't really have to like show them again, so I just like speed it up. Like I only really speed up the parts that are redundant sometimes. Most of the time I just don't. I leave it at times one speed because again I want it to be an immersive experience. Like I want you to like sort of like imagine that you're actually on board, like let's say service 865, even though you actually aren't. It's just put together using video editing, pieced together using video editing more of. Because how many people can like say, hey, 852 used to go to Boon Lay, or like service 119, the past uh, iterations of it, it was 865 and 85, and it actually went all the way to Harbourfront. Like how many people can actually tell you that confidently? And then there were also some naysayers like, hey, why don't you just recreate them using your own private vehicle, or why don't you hire Angus and Sheep to help you to drive you along the route? So first up, if I get a private bus company to drive the route, realistically speaking, it's like it's unrealistic to expect people to like call at every single bus stop, because that would like it would be sort of like a disturbance to buses that are actually on revenue service. So your bus has to skip all the stops. And by skipping all the stops, I thought that it was like kind of like unrealistic to do that, because a bus more or less is like local, some of them are express. They call the bus stops. They don't just skip all the way. Like if I watch a hyperlapse, then of course I would be happier when the bus skips the route, because I just want to know the routes. I don't really want to know the bus stops. But then people still put the infographics over anyway. So it's like, because the reason why I don't like actually hire or pay people to like drive for me is because I want it to be as real as possible. I want them to call the stops that they're supposed to call. I mean, not all of them. Obviously, there are some cases whereby they're just not able to, so I just put text boxes. And I'm not really that particular on stops either, because bus stops, they really change over time. Like their position, bus stops get added or removed over time. It's like just natural anyway. But essentially, I just find that like hiring a private driver to like drive the route for you, unless the route is like really impossible to create today, I just find that if I can do it with normal buses, I'll just do it with normal buses, and I'll just like find my own creative solutions to recreate them. Like in the case of 989, I got lazy on one bit. I could have just used 966, but I was right just way too lazy to wait for a single decker on 966. So I made the bus teleport. And then in along PIE Upper Changi Road East, I also made the bus teleport because I was like, there's no other bus that can go straight, so I just do this kind of like nonsense anyway. And even if like it's not 100% accurate, at least you kind of get the whole idea of the bus route, why it was even a thing in the past, and that's what I want people to learn about. So again, I just find that like when you skip all the stops and you put infographics, that it kind of like makes no sense. And even if you have a bus that's all local, you can just put a text box there saying that, oh, in reality, the bus route is express. It, I just feel that like doing it that way is like getting people to drive for you is unrealistic. And if you're using your own vehicle to drive, obviously you're not going to be able to call the bus stops as well. And the most important thing is that if you're using a private vehicle, be it a bus or let's say a car or whatever vehicle, a van or anything, you're not authorized to like go inside the bus interchanges and terminals. You can only recreate routes like let's say 42 or anything that stop and end outside MRT stations or just random locations. So that's the reason why I use normal buses. So skipping stops, it's good to learn the route, but it's not really good when you're trying to like learn about the stops, and that's the reason why I don't use private buses. I just find it a little bit weird when you skip stop and then you tell people the bus stops at the bus stop. Yeah, that's why. It is still kind of wild though that like literally I'm the only one that's like even attempting to do the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s routes. But more on like the 1979 side, I would say. And then I also do some that are like in the 2000s era. Like 989. What else is from the 2000s era? 700, 520, and even these as well, like 501, 507, 508, 511, and even these 231G, 232W. And yeah, more or less along those lines. And even those in the 1990s as well, 27 from Changi Airport to Pasir Ris, 16E to Changi Airport, but I cut the video short because I was using a double decker. I did not actually uh, edit this video to make it go inside Changi Airport. So yeah. And then 146 in the past as well. It was really different from the present day one. Another thing is that like let's say my friends were to actually attempt to recreate a route in the past, because their videos are like sped up and they replace the audio, they can actually get away with like let's say riding a ride and then switching to a man A95 Euro 5 or something along those lines, because man A- man A95 Euro 5 is kind of like quiet. Sometimes when you ride it, you're not even able to like hear the sounds of the bus, like the transmission or anything. So that is actually a good bus model to like recreate stuff on. But for me, I just recreate them all on like B9TL rides. And that's kind of the reason why for them, if they really wanted to like recreate routes on double deckers, they don't even really have to care much about like bus model consistency, but for me it's like sometimes I care about it, sometimes I don't, but most of the time I would at least aim or try to like ensure that there's like some form of like bus model consistency so that it still appears real in that sense. Like obviously these recreations, they're not like so-called real videos. They are just they're just edited and put and stacked together part by part to like recreate the routes in the past. Oh, where was I? Obviously they're not real, but I still want to like make it as realistically realistic as real as possible, basically. So yeah, again, for these people, if they were to ever do it, they don't really have to be so particular with the bus models, or even if you're doing it on a single decker, you can just zoom in and just pretend that you're on the same bus even though you're actually on a different bus model. So yeah, for me it's like I don't know which ones I did. It's like okay, like for example 989, I made sure that even though the bus, like the gearbox is different, I want to make sure that the bus, the frame of the bus is more or less the same. So I use A22s, I use A24s to like recreate this. I use like 858 and 180 A24s to do this. So it gives off the impression that oh, I'm always on the man bus. Even though you can obviously see the bus registration number changes again and again and again, but it's like it still looks real in that sense. As opposed to like you piecing together how do you say piecing together videos from that you recorded in different bus models. So yeah, for me this is what bus model consistency can do to you. Like it just makes your video that that much more real in that sense. And that's why I like B90 right. I mean like as a bus alone, that is still my favorite double decker like that's still existing right now. But another reason why I like is that because there is like one common model you can use to like if effectively recreate all the routes in the past. And then a quick note, not many enthusiasts do like front views of private buses like premium bus services because for private buses you gotta understand that some drivers are more like sensitive and more particular and they don't really want their bus or their driving being filmed, so that's why it's much harder to like get footage for private bus services, even though I've managed to get like quite a lot. Okay, I'll just show you. Okay, pardon me because it's gonna take a long time to load in. Oh, oh no no no! I'm lagging. No 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 no! Please, undo. What am I doing wrong? Now my cursor is like frozen in this. Okay, I fixed it. Oh yes, this 506 is actually this actually put together using different services. Upper East Coast. Oh yeah, so what I'm talking about is like 590 Pandan Valley, 595. No, 560 Pandan Valley, 565 Ahud Road, 570 from Pasir Ris, 591, 592, 593, 621, 640. It's a canopy bus, so I filmed on the rightmost, the frontmost right seat. And then here's all the city directs. I use some of the city directs to do some of my old premium bus services. Uh, hold on. This one is recreated because I'm lazy. I have footage, so why not? Might as well. Oh yeah, 722, 728, 729, 736, 740, 742, 762, 767. So yeah, for premium buses, even though the drivers are more particular, like some of them, but for the most part, I still managed to get like some of them, like going to Harbor Drive and this one going to Changi North Crescent, Changi Changi North Street 1 or something along those lines, and entering PIE from there, so on and so forth. So because for like in Singapore for public buses, it's much easier to get like footage as long as you have the front seats. That's why like I feel that like putting together these, whether you're doing it in one take and preserving the 4K of the video, or like you're just downloading your own videos and then from YouTube and just combining them, but you lose the 4K or the HD whilst doing so, because when you download from YouTube they only give you like 720p or something along those lines. Regardless of how you're doing it, I just find it like in general a really meaningful thing to do. So in short, like I myself miss the bus routes from the past, like when I was a kid. Unfortunately, some routes like 605, 608 especially, because they go through like Maxwell Road, they go through Havelock Road Minor, which is near BO Crescent. You're unable to recreate it like nowadays, unless you get your friend to drive for you or something along those lines. Because I miss the bus routes and I want to like bring back history and make it sort of like compatible in some sense with the present, I guess. That's the whole reason why I started this series, and I'm surprised that like I'm literally the only one doing this. Like I've seen NR1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 8. I've also seen like 1N to 6N. I'm not sure if there's 7N or 8N. And then unfortunately, NR9 to NR22 are very, very difficult to recreate. I've tried like I I've tried thinking I've thought about recreating them, but some of them are just like flat out impossible to do unless I do them in like short sectors or something along those lines. So yeah, that's the reason why in general I don't speed up my videos, because I want it to be fully authentic. Albeit sometimes I put a text box to cover up part of the footage, like for necessity, for essential reasons. What am I saying? Okay, but basically, that's the reason why I keep my videos unedited, because I just want it to be fully immersive. I want you to hear the doors closing, bus stopping, passengers going up and down the upper deck, even passengers walking. All these ambient sounds that make the bus ride a lot more immersive and real, as well as like the tap ins and tap outs. And that's kind of the reason why I don't really do the hyperlapses, because it's like I just want to make a series that like truly represents myself as well as the buses, the time that I grew up in. I know it's hard to believe sometimes, but I am actually 25 years old, so yeah. It's not necessarily about being different for the sake of being different, but like I just want to be authentic. That's all. And I guess you can kind of say that's like sort of the reason why I don't necessarily follow just trends in general. Yeah. Just because I see all the thumbnails like this doesn't really mean I have to like, you know, film the stuff or do the stuff that's like popular amongst people. So I'm just gonna close off by saying there's nothing wrong with copying, but I just want to be authentic, and that's all.